And joining us from Charlotte, North Carolina is Mary C. Curtis. She's a nationally syndicated columnist for Roll Call and host of the Equal Time podcast. Thank you so much for your time, Mary. Now, Memphis Police has disbanded the so-called Scorpion Special Unit. Tell us about how this task force operates and why the whole unit has been shut down rather than just holding those individual police officers accountable.
Well, the focus and the reason for these units, they flood areas that are designated as high crime with officers. And the point is to keep these communities safe and to actually, pick up and arrest criminals. But the problem is when you flood any community with a lot of police officers acting in an aggressive manner, they'll start to look at the citizens as perpetrators. And so many of these stops for so-called traffic violations is so they can search a car, say, for drugs or weapons, but they end up being very aggressive, and we can see what happens. And the thing of it is, other communities don't have many police looking for criminals there because you can always spot something and use that as a pretext or an excuse.
Now, the 5 officers were taken into custody on Thursday and each are facing very serious charges: second-degree murder, as we heard from Tony there, aggravated assault, kidnapping. There's been praise that the police chief acted so swiftly, but there's also been some discussion about whether white police officers would be held to account as quickly or with such harsh charges. What are your thoughts on that?
I think many people in the African American community are very cynical because they've seen cases before that have languished, or in some cases where the officers aren't charged. You talk about Breonna Taylor in Kentucky, even though that warrant was gotten under false pretenses. I just think people want to move forward and say, well, this should be a blueprint on how it's handled from now on. We see that officers can be charged immediately, that they can be dismissed. Usually you see many officers just go on administrative leave, and the investigations take forever. So I think people will be looking forward. But mainly it just needs to be some federal reforms and some laws. And we see this police reform bill that was bipartisan, and then it just died. And then when politicians started to weaponize the so-called defund the police movement, nobody really wanted to touch the issue of police reform.
But a lot of people saying that reform is not enough, that while reforms are attempted to be passed, and that's the energy behind change, that police violence is far more deeply rooted in the system. What do you think on a broader, more social, historical stance needs to change in order to actually see that generational shift that just seems to not be happening?
The whole system of policing has to be changed. We see there are 18,000 separate police departments in the United States, and they all operate independently. And in many cases, officers who offend in one area go to another department. The whole system of policing, yes, it is rooted in our country. There is systemic racism, whether the officers are white or black or any other nationality, and it has to be rethought. Also, a lot of money has to go into improving communities, mental health facilities, housing, and elsewhere, because we see police handling many things that they really shouldn't.
All right, really appreciate your thoughts as always. Mary C. Curtis, thank you for that. Nationally syndicated columnist for Roll Call and host of Equal Time.